Hello, everyone. Welcome to the round five roundup for I keep forgetting what this tournament's called. Release the Beast. Welcome. We've been playing it for 5 rounds now, so this is our fifth game that we've played in this tournament. This is obviously our 70-ish player online TTS Age of Sigmar 3 tournament that we've got going on. And it's been a cracker so far, and round five continues to be amazing. We're planning on going through all the results that we've had in round five, talk about the battle plan, talk about matchups, talk about stories that have happened. And joining me in this endeavour is the Sandwich King, Stuart McCowan. How you doing, buddy?
Hello. That's all
How
it
was your
says in the show
sandwich?
notes, so just
I
saying
know.
hello. Yeah, yeah.
You telling
Yes.
me that you had a good sandwich today, yeah?
Yes, I went out today and I got a Cuban sandwich with pork with pulled pork and pickles. It was very good. Yep.
Brilliant. Excellent. Right, Stuart, round five, we played what did we play? Power in Numbers, which is similar to Old World Scorched Earth, but also completely different. So tell me about this battle plan. What do you think about it?
Well, I mean the one that it's really like is the old better part of valor when your battle
The
line
one I meant,
units
yeah.
used to sit.
That's the one.
It used to be game mode where you would kind of just sit in your deployment zone until someone makes a mistake and then steal one objective and then the game was over. Um,
So what's this one like, Stuart? How does it work in AOS3?
well, the difference is now, so it used to be that only battle line units could capture the objectives. So if you killed all of your opponent's battle line, they couldn't win the game basically. Because there weren't also battle tactics, so another way to score victory points, it was just objectives. So if you had not a lot of battle line in your list, or let's say you're playing something like Carriage on Overlords that can easily just destroy your opponent's battle line, it was often a very imbalanced scenario, and I think it was very rarely in tournament packs. Like I never played in a tournament pack that had better part of Valor in there. It was viewed as kind of the worst scenario probably of the last edition.
Probably.
Yeah. And then the big changes here in the new one is that it's not that battle line only can capture the objective. It's if there's a battle line unit within 6 of an objective, then only battle line units can cap it. So you get like this cool little battle line war happening. So your opponent puts 10 dudes there that are battle line, and then your big cap 10 Frost Sword and Stonehorn can't interfere with their battle line capturing. It's basically the same mechanic they've imported from 40k in terms of objectives secured. And then obviously the other major change is there's other ways to score victory points other than burning the objectives. So even when your opponent just burns all the objectives, doesn't necessarily mean the game's over because you still have those battle tactics and the grand strategy to score victory points as well.
On top of all those layers, you can obviously delete your own objectives now in your deployment zone, and on turn three, an objective is going to be deleted thanks to seismic shift and the GHB. So objectives doing all sorts of crazy stuff here, mainly going away and changing the areas of which people are fighting over and putting pressure on people to either hunker down on one objective because it's their last remaining thing that they need to control to get the 8 points at the end of turn five, or they're pushing forward and screwing their own objectives and trying to burn their opponents. And it created some quite interesting results, maybe some that upset maybe some standard matchup, but army versus army matchups have been flipped on their head because this battle plan's quite extreme, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think it's one of those battle plans as well where the game can suddenly just blow up in your face, especially with the objective burn on round three. I mean, in almost all of the games I watched this week, and also my game, the game was kind of over on turn three because, usually the person who won the priority either was kind of in a lose-lose situation already with the objective burning, or often what I saw was the person who won the priority burned an objective and then the game was kind of over because the point score would swing too hard in their direction. So definitely
It'd be
a
an
little bit of a
8 point
swingy
deletion,
battle
isn't it?
plan. Yeah, so
Yeah.
if you're standing there the whole game, playing to cash in that big 8 points at the end of the game, and then on turn 3 your opponent just burns one off, and then suddenly you have 2 objectives and he has 3 objectives. You know, he's 8 points up unless you do something. So it's tricky.
Cool, and it made for some interesting results. Before we move on, we've got a little bit of a housekeeping where, unfortunately, Archaeon, who was one of the players in the tournament looking to maybe take it out, unfortunately had to drop due to illness, which was a shame. So do make sure that you send some love to Archaeon, because I know he's a little bit, always a shame when you have to drop out when you're doing well. So on table 1, we had Antu, who was scheduled to play against Archaeon, who ended up playing against our hero Tavi, Tavstar on Discord, who was able to play the exact same list that Archaeon brought to the event and give Antu, the exact same run that he would have always had, just against a different pilot. And this was a very close game, wasn't it, Stuart?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're looking at the list on paper, like, we weren't sure what to think about it with Antu playing the Marathi Bow Snakes with Gotrek versus the Croak Fangs of Sotek. Both absolute powerhouses, and sure how it was going to go.
Yeah, Antu messaged me before the game, and he reckons it was as extreme as a 70-30 to the favour of the Seraphon. He said he wasn't happy about the matchup. He thought he had to pull off some miracle to win here. Do you feel it was that of extreme, or do you feel it was maybe more a bit closer going into it, or was it the battle plan that maybe made it that more difficult for the doc?
I think the battle plan is not great. And I also think that Marathi historically is just quite bad against Seraphon. Like, the Bow Snakes are good against Seraphon, but the Marathi component of the list doesn't really do much against Seraphon, because you get Comet's Call, and there's other ways to chip you down as well, with like the Realm Shaper engine, kind of all guaranteed ways to chip you down. Just get 3 wounds in every turn, and then once you do finally get in,
Anything.
yeah, and then once you do finally get in, there's that chance for the skinks to just retreat anyway. So difficult to kind of use her properly. But
Yeah, well, Antu gave it a good shot, didn't he? So
yeah,
he went first and was able just to put Gotrek and Marathi straight up in the middle, and then did a little bit of shooting with the snakes to take out 15 of one of the skink blocks. And obviously, skinks are one of those units that get bonuses for the amount of models that they still have in the unit. So taking them below half meant they didn't get their extra attack, which was quite nice for round 2. But that's all he could have done turn 1, really, is push up and hope for the best.
yeah, and later, I mean, one of the key inclusions in the Fangs of Sotek list is that Frost Heart Phoenix, right, for the -1 to wound aura, and Tavi took advantage of that. Kind of positioned them behind his little skink castle to make it more skinks taken out. Yeah.
Yep, and then we obviously mentioned the battle plan being tricky for maybe the dock player. Antu felt that he had to play really aggressive and had burnt his objectives behind him and then pushed forward, because otherwise he was going to maybe get blasted by the skink shooting, and wasn't able to. He'd have to commit too much back to defend the objectives against the teleporting and summoning. So he kind of just went, I'm burning early, I'm burning on turn 2, and I'm going forward and trying to meet my opponent head on. And from there it went pretty backwards and forwards, just killing each other's stuff. Gotrek killing the Phoenix, Skinks grinding out against the Snakes, Marathi going down to Comet's Call and the Realm Shaper, like you said, in turn 3. And it was just a few points in it, but it did go in the favour of the Seraphon in the end, resulting in a 11-9 victory to Tavi here, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, 11-9.
And from what we've heard from the game, it seems like Gotrek and the Bow Snakes did a lot, but Marathi really seemed to do much. She went down turn 3, which is what you'd expect against Seraphon.
Almost guaranteed, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think she's not great into that matchup. You actually might want just something else in your list. I know the Bow Snakes get double shoot, but yeah, it's rough to play against Seraphon, I think.
I have noticed in general among other YouTube and Discord users and stuff like that that maybe Marathi is slightly falling out of favour. I think she got lifted on top of the podium really, really quickly into RS3, and then after shaking it out in a few tournaments, people are maybe turning their noses up a bit about her now. But she has just got an extra rend back in the newest FAQ, so I still think she's a strong unit, right? Just maybe not the top menace that people thought she was going to be.
I think there's just a few more ways to like mess with her onslaught during her turn, because it used to be like, in the Marathi player's turn, there kind of wasn't much you could do about it. Get double shot with this charge with Marathi, and basically 2 units would die, right? But now, you
Exactly.
might be able to all out defense in the shooting phase to stop some of the snake's output, and then also, like, there are a bunch of things you can do to stop Marathi from getting her right target or killing the target that she wants to kill. You can redeploy to get out of the way with like a key unit. You can pop Finest Hour and then get another +1 save if she doesn't roar you, to kind of mitigate her damage. I mean, less so with the -2 Ren now, but still, you can blunt her spear on the key turn where she's still alive, and then then kill her on your turn, and then you don't have to deal with her anymore, right?
Another thing that Marathi's susceptible to is control lists, which is my segue into table 2, Stuart, because we had Philip versus Olivier. Philip with his control Legion, the first prince, and Olivier with his control foxes. This game scared me.
Yeah, look, I have to say, at the end of our show last time, we didn't mention the battle plan, and I think in this matchup, the battle plan, like we have to we have to say that the battle plan is hugely advantageous for the first prince player here, right? Like, just being able to sit 3 units of 10 pink horrors on your home objectives, and then constantly been threatening to summon battle line pink horrors, or any of the other cult units from the demon units from chaos onto your opponent's objectives, and then burn them when you come down. Like, Legion of the First Prince is proper scary on this battle plan, isn't it?
It is, but it's scary in like an unconventional way, because in this game in particular, Philip almost didn't kill anything. I think 7 wardens or something like that, and a couple of blade lords, but and maybe a fox in turn 5. But when I joined in around turn 2 or turn 3, Philip hadn't touched anything, and he'd been pinned back by the foxes. Obviously, the foxes are really good at restricting your movement by where you can go, and then running away in their turn, and then coming back in, like cycle charging you constantly, which is what Olivier's been doing to great effect. Um, but the output from the Olivier's list is still pretty good, considering that Bellacore got a double turn stopping the Sentinel shooting. But when I joined in turn 3, Kairos was gone, the Demon Prince was almost gone, a lot of the pinks had gone. But that doesn't matter when Philip was able to burn the 4 corner objectives, so his own, and then Olivier's 2 corner objectives early on with the summoning, like you said. And at that point, the foxes can do all their control and all their tying up, but they're not going to take the objectives off of pinks, are they? And that's what happened. Philip was able to hold on to his objective for the whole game, and was eventually able to stop the Olivier's home objective underneath his sentinels, and cap that off it, or burn it with the turn 3, I think, and get the win for Philip. So output isn't necessarily all you need on this battle plan, is it?
Yeah, I think it's one of those battle plans. I mean, there's a debate always whether to host the battle plans before the submission, all that kind of thing. But you're playing in a tournament where, future tournaments where the battle plans aren't shown. Maybe, I guess in this edition we're going to have to be careful about the battle lines. I know my list is actually terrible at this point, well, so it's yeah, something to watch out for, I think. Yeah.
Cool. So that was obviously Philip getting the win. So well done to Philip. We can say well done to Philip twice now, because everyone watching this knows that he's actually gone and won the event. So, Legion the First Prince obviously doing really, really well. We'll move on to table 3, shall we, Stuart? Where we had Warhammer Rob versus Tobias. How did this game go?
Well, I did catch actually most of this game, Luke, and it was very interesting. So one of the things about there's the battle plan, we talked about that, but also the map was quite important. So we play on a standardized map on Tabletop Simulator, of course, and this map had like 2 big towers in the middle with a choke point which had some area terrain on it. And both the big towers were impassable, so There wasn't really any way to get around them. So basically, there was a corridor on the left side, the middle, and then the right side of the board. And in this game, which was Rob playing Nagash Soulblight Gravelords versus Tobias playing his cities, Tobias really took advantage of that center choke point. And it looked totally bizarre when I joined the game, but there was just this big blue bird at the front of it, and then just conga line of dwarves behind it. And that, he basically sat there the whole game with Big Bird and then dwarves. And it made it really hard for Rob to kind of get around the board. Just because, yeah, so much of the board was blocked off with either models or impassable terrain. And so, yeah, I mean, that really just shows how important board control is. And I would say that's probably something that these big god lists struggle with, right? There's just not enough in the list to kind of take control of these choke points. So often your opponent can kind of box you in a little bit, and then it does kind of feel like an uphill battle. Like, I've got to get through so much stuff with Nagash. You know, he's got to land all of the hands of dust to get stuff off, or it's just not going to work out. And you know, it was quite a back and forth game still, but Nagash just couldn't quite get rid of all the stuff to regain control of the middle. You know, Rob said he only killed 11 models the whole game, which I mean is slightly misrepresenting what happened, because a lot of those models were kind of high value. But yeah, the Iron Drakes kind of just sat in the middle shooting stuff. That's kind of how it went down. Yeah.
Yeah, but they weren't able to take down Nagash. I mean, I know Tobias has earlier on in the tournament, all in went and killed Gotrek in one, all in killed a big unit of something or other in one, but he wasn't able to take down Nagash, and obviously Nagash's healing is quite potent. So Nagash stayed alive for the whole game against the Iron Drake shooting, but the power projection that they can put once they're put in the right place, thanks to the Soul Screen Bridge, in their little fort, like you said, and you had the Big Bird and Gotrek protecting them, they were just able to remove everything else in the list, and that's what we've seen with Rob's list a few times now, where he's only left with Nagash left, and Nagash can do a lot of things, but he can't cap 6 objectives, and that's what cost Rob the game here, really, isn't it?
Yeah, and also, like, I mean, it wasn't only just the Big Bird in the middle. He also had Gotrek in the list, who was on Rob's right. So Tobias's left, he went down that flank with Gotrek. So he really just controlled parts of the board with the impassable terrain, and just horrible to play against. Yeah.
Well done to Tobias, who obviously went on to play Philip in the final. Surprise list from Tobias there. Maybe some people have forgotten about Iron Drakes and the Soul Screen Bridge, but it's definitely a thing. And with the inclusion of things like Gotrek and Phoenix to improve the survivability, I reckon it's up there in one of the top competitive lists at the moment.
All right, and then we had Luke Willabooby versus Matthew Terrell on table 4.
We did, Stuart. This is my game. And in the show notes it says Stuart knows this game's better than Luke, blah blah blah. Luke got lucky and Luke is a shit player. Is that right?
I did watch this whole game. It was quite interesting. I mean, I guess I'll give my little rundown of it. So, I mean, Matt Terrell's playing Soulblight. We're talking about it, you know, last week and a few weeks before. Kind of this like full damage archetype. And Luke's playing Gargants. So neither of them have like really any screens or any flexibility anywhere in the list. It's just like damage. So, you know, as you would expect, the priorities are just huge in this matchup. Like, it's just you kill me or I kill you. And Luke's got the edge here, I think, on this battle plan, because obviously those big mega Gargants are also battle line. So you've got the two, in Luke's list, he's got Kragnos and then 2 breakers and then a Man Crusher. So the 2 breakers are battle line and they count as 20. And then the Man Crusher's battle line and he counts as 10. And so it makes it quite difficult for your opponent to come and take an objective off you, because obviously you've got those 3 battle line units, 2 of which count as 20. So Matt Terrell had 2 units of 20 Graveguard and 20 zombies as his battle line, and so the Graveguard, even if he got all 20 onto one objective, wouldn't be able to steal one from the Breaker. So he has to kill the Breaker to get the objective, right? That's basically the sum of it. And so the mission was here. So Luke went first, did nothing. what a
Gave me
champion.
first. He gave me first. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I literally, it was the quickest turn I've ever played in my life. I deployed where all of my Kragnos, my Gatebreaker, and the Man Crusher were all within 3 of each other. So I literally said, "Ferocious advance, your turn."
Nice.
That was it. That was it.
Yep. And then Mataro came down with the Graveguard, really gunning for the double.
He like semi-committed, I think. He like half-committed, so he actually opted to run Vordry and Manfred and Belladama to match me with the Ferocious Advance with the monsters because he turned Belladama into a monster. So as soon as he did that, I knew that Vordry and Manfred weren't getting into me turn 1. It was just going to be the unit of Graveguard that he would be able to deep strike with. And I was thinking before the game that he was probably going to go really, really hard and get pinions off of Vordry, push him up, try and get the charge with him, try and get the charge with the Graveguard, maybe even a second unit of Graveguard, and then get the double. But I think he half committed here. And then what happened was that he didn't get the double. And then I was able to kill the Graveguard that popped up with Kragnos, tag Vordry with the Gatebreaker with the amulet. He did whiff a bit, only did 3 damage to Vordry, but still able to do his job of tagging him up. And then outflank him with the. So he committed on one side where I had my solo man crush Gatebreaker with the Amulet of Destiny. Moved Kragnos and the mini Gargant over to deal with that threat, and then the general went off on his own round the corner and took off some zombies and burnt the 2 right flank objectives. This was a bit of a. There was a chance here where Matt could have completely ruined my plans because I actually forgot that with the Soul Blight they can bring a unit back on a 5-up, and that's in the Battle Shock phase, not at the end of the turn. So he would have actually capped the objective off me before I was able to burn it if he got that 5-up and brought the Graveguard back. But he didn't. He didn't roll the 5-up, so I got off a bit scot-free there. And then Matt decided to play defensive. Why do you think Matt went defensive here? Because defensive versus aggressive on this battle plan is kind of what I've been seeing.
I mean, I think personally the game was probably already over at that point. I mean, he's kind of got to just like get all his stuff where it needs to be so that he can do enough damage to actually take down a Gargant. If he keeps playing, like if he plays kind of like this thing goes here one at a time, then he's just not going to get anything done. So I think maybe what he was thinking is, well, if I can get Luke to come to him, then all my threats are going to be in the same spot, and then I'll be able to take down big dude. So I can understand that kind of line of thinking, but I think it's just too easy for you to just nick an objective off it with the Gatebreakers, right? I mean, it's just so hard to play against where your opponent's Gargant can just move on and count as 20 and just take the objective off you and burn. It's just like, you have to put, in his list, he has, 1 unit 20 zombies, 2 units of 20 Graveguards. So 2 units have to be on one objective to hold it. Right? And then, because those units are so slow, you're kind of stuck there the whole game. Like, you can't really get.
By the top of my turn 2,
yeah,
I'd already taken out 2 of those units. I'd already taken out the zombies and taken out the Graveguard.
So, I mean, I think at that point, the hope is like somehow he tables you, or I don't know. It's just so hard to win from that point.
He was able to get the turn 3 priority, but he was in such a pickle because he had the choice of giving me the turn to delete one of my objectives, and then I have the opportunity to smash him some more and maybe even burn his objectives, or he takes a turn and then I just burn his home objective and basically he gets no points for the rest of the game and the game's over. So he gave me the turn, burnt one of my objectives, but then I was able to do a play with the Man Crusher where I was able to run him 6, bring the Amulet of Destiny Gargant within 12 of the Man Crusher so it can run and charge. And then I had a classic Luke Willoughby 9-inch charge to make. And by God, Stuart, I made it. And I got the 9-inch charge onto his general in the middle. And obviously he had no battle line on that objective, so I was able to burn it afterwards. I mean, the Man Crusher and the general just slapped each other a bit, didn't kill each other, but then I was able to burn it. And at that point, the game was over, really, wasn't it? At that point, Matt said it's over. Let's just play out to see what we get for battle tactics. And I was able to keep quite a few of my battle tactics up. Vordry did nothing the whole game. He decided not to go for the alpha first, so therefore Wardry was retreating, and then in turn 4, I think Kragnos was able to come in and give him the big blammer, 18 mortal wounds with his charge ability, and I managed to get 18 to 2 victory points in the end, Stuart. I was quite happy with that result, but Matt did get a bit unlucky with a few dice rolls, and like you said, once that first turn went the way it did, it was a very uphill battle for Matt.
Yeah, I think Gargants is one of those armies where player playing against Gargants, certain matchups just have to play like perfect, and then the Gargants player like just has to kind of just because the army's kind of fairly simple to play. Like, you don't have to do that much to win in a good matchup, right?
Micromanagement. There's no micromanagement. There's not like auras and buffs and overlap and synergies that you have to worry about. I found it really empowering that it's not one of those armies that's really heavy on the cognitive load, where it gives you time, it gives you space to think about, because you're not worrying about which units are in coherency and which units are piling in this way. You just got your 3 or 4 big guys, and it gives you space to think about the meta and the flow of the game and the overall macro moves and things like that, as opposed to micro moves. And I've found that gel with my play style quite well with the Gargants, where I'm able to plan a couple of turns ahead on battle tactics and where I'm going to be, because I'm not worried about the minutia of some of the armies that other armies are playing. So it worked well for me here.
Yeah, just don't play Gargants if you want to write lists. Because it's like 3. All right.
I disagree. I think there's more flavour in it. But yeah, we had table 5 afterwards, didn't we, Stuart? Orkman versus another Gargant player, Miles.
Yes. So, I mean, we talked about Orkman's list before, but I mean, roughly speaking, some big monsters, Scarbrand and the Boomthirster, and then just a load of crap. And that's pretty good against Gargants, isn't it, Luke? I gotta say, like, the archetype that's good against Gargants is like, here's some things that's gonna kill you, and then I have some screens to make sure that they do it. And yeah, I mean, Scarbrand, we talked about it before. Boy, does he slap, and he'll easily kill one Gargant a turn by himself with a double pylon.
He actually was able to take out the 5-up ward general in this list in one go, which is effectively 50 wounds.
Yeah. I mean, it's big. Yeah, he does that. Absolutely. Statistically, he absolutely does that with 3 attacks. So it's insane. It's great to see Orkman doing so well with this list. And like, Horn's great with this because not only do your screens enable you to get the right matchups at the right time, but also they give you Blood Tithe, which mostly I think he's been using them as hero phase move to get the Scarbrand where he needs to be, or perhaps like a hero phase fight to just get something out of combat. Yep.
Fight on death when he's put Scarbrand forward and he knows Scarbrand's in a bit of an awkward place. 6 points, 6 Blood Tithe, which he's almost got by that point, almost guaranteed. If you charge Scarbrand, you're going down with me because he can double fight on death, type thing. And yeah, screens versus not screens. Scarbrand already smashing. I think Miles was able to take out Scarbrand on turn 3, but by that point, 2 of the big Gargants had gone down, and Orkman was able to push up on the middle. Orkman can summon and bring back Scarblood Wrath and just dominate the objective game, and that's very much how Orkman likes to play. Is very objective focused, but in this list he's also got the huge beat stick that is Scarblood Wrath, and it's working really well for him because he's on a 4-1 with Khorne, Stuart.
Nice, and we have seen Khorne doing a bit better around the world than it was in the previous edition. Good to see. Good to see.
It is.
Okay, and then on table 6, Stuart. Yeah, we had Little Tank versus Forgive. So, Flesh Eater Courts rocking the OG Terrorgeist spam versus Forgive playing Thunder Lizard. So quite an interesting, but obviously still got that Bastion. And yeah, there was some interesting kind of touch points in this game. Feck, as always, is quite swingy with the Terrorgeist. So I'll just give the full rundown from the first turn. So Flesh Eater Courts went first, and they got a lucky charge with ambushing ghouls and flayers. Looks written is illegal. I don't think it is because the Arch region and the Terrorgeist have different.
Are they called different things? Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, on Forgive's subsequent bottom of turn 1, the Bastille apparently was out of range. So I'm guessing that the ambushing units were on the other side of the Bastille, and all the Terrorgeists were way back. Perhaps he might have failed the prayer as well to get the run and shoot. So it might have just
charge.
been it might have just been moving 5 and then the 24-inch shoot. But Forgive then got the double. But unfortunately, the unit of 6 Pterodons he's got there failed their charge, and so weren't able to drop the bombs, potentially take down, assuming a Terrorgeist. But he was able to burn 2 of Little Tank's objectives, so the Flesh Eater Court's objectives. But then Flesh Eater Court's got turn 2 and burned all remaining objectives. So I mean, yep, bottom of 2. There weren't any objectives on the board, which is just bizarre. That's just crazy. And then Seraphon won the Prio though, and took it, and they managed to take down a Terrorgeist with Gotrek. And then on the bottom of 3, Flesh Eater Courts went Bring It Down on the Bastille, and I mean, that never works. Even if you're playing all it just never works. Do that. Never works, because that thing, like, if it rolls well on the saves, there's just kind of nothing you can do. So, I mean, I know obviously with Flesh Eater Courts, you've got access to the 6 mortar wounds with the maul, but I mean, that's quite unreliable, isn't it? And unfortunately, he didn't roll any 6s with the maul. The Bastille lived. But then after that, like, Forgive couldn't really get any battle tactics for the rest of the game. But Flesh Eater Courts could get broken ranks with bonus point from monster. And then into turn 5, it was 15 to 15. And Flesh Eater Courts won by denying their opponent the grand strategy. They were able to get their own Beastmaster grand strategy, and I can't remember what Forgive's was, but yeah, basically with 18-5. So very close victory for the Flesh Eater Courts, but kind of an insane game where like 2 players just kind of deleted each other's armies off the board, and also the objectives. Because, I mean, that's Flesh Eater Courts in a nutshell, isn't it? It's like, I do 1 million damage, that's kind of swingy, and I'm very, very squishy. So this game's going to be over quite quickly. There's kind of not a lot of stuff in the late game. Stuff's dead, it's dead. There's no, like, summoning beyond the initial first turns of summoning. So, there it goes. But congrats to Little Tank. He's on 4-1 now, which is with Feck, which is great. Yeah, and gunning for that 5-1 with Flesh Eater Courts, which is great.
Yeah, good luck to him. On table 7, Stuart, we had Tavi and Pitari. So I said last round that this was going to be a hell of a game, and it was. It absolutely was. It was a very close game, and some absolute mega plays coming out of this game. So it started off with Tavi not doing a lot, which is a classic, doing a little bit of shooting with the Bastille, but obviously Pitari can control where that shooting is and what it is because of his Forgotten Nightmares ability. And then we had an instant IDK alpha double. Pitari's probably thinking he's not going to win the grind here, so he's just going to pin the Seraphon back, and he burnt 4 of the 6 objectives, turn 2 on his double turn. So we're seeing now in a couple of games that these early burns coming out. Turn 3 went to Tavi, who was able to delete one of the remaining objectives. So he's now 1 objective left on the board, and that's kind of it. Was able just to maneuver around, and then in Pitari's turn 3, Tavi pulls out one of my favourite plays of the tournament, Stuart. So Pitari selects Slay the Warlord off on the Slan, which is sat in the Realm Shaper engine. In the hero turn previous, so in Tavi's hero phase, the Slan had made himself a monster with Metamorphosis. So when this Eidolon comes crashing into the Realm Shaper engine, ready to bring it down and kill the Slan, in the monstrous reaction phase, Tavi elects to go with the Slan to smash down the Realm Shaper engine, which then he gets, pops out the Slan, the other side of the Realm Shaper engine, out of combat of the Eidolon, including its 3-inch piling, because the actual terrain is still in the way and it can't go over it. And then doesn't roll the one for the plan to die and gets himself like a 4 victory point swing there, which is just, I think, just incredible, amazing. Tavi's an absolute genius when it comes to these bullshit realm shaper engine plays. He loves that thing. I've had it against me where he got a Bastillodon moving like 24 inches because of jank he could do with garrison rules. So yeah, he did really, really well there. And in any other game, that play alone would have been enough to win him the game. But unfortunately, in turn 4 and 5, Tavi was unable to kill one eel with 2 rounds of comic calls and some shooting because it had. I've done a typo there. It's not musical terrain, mystical terrain on that eel, and Pitari just kept rolling sixes every time Tavi got the comets call off, and that eel surviving got the denied the grand strategy and denied the battle tactics from Tavi, and cost him the game ultimately. So it went in Pitari's favour, very, very, very close, 12-8 in the end. But how cute is that Realm Shaper engine play, Stuart?
That's great. I've done a couple similar things with the more pot blowing it up, so it's no longer impassable. But yeah, it's interesting. It's very cool play, definitely.
Very cool play. So unlucky there, Tavi. Pitari won't mind me saying this. He got lucky with his sixes, and Tavi got robbed a bit there. But Pitari obviously had to play well to keep the point balanced up at that point. On the next table, Stuart, what went down?
We had Nikita versus Tubbs. So Nikita with the ultra grind list, as I'm gonna call it, with the Soul Black Gravelords. Just a load of shit. Let's be honest, and just skeletons, blood knights. No, doesn't have any fellbats in there. Appointment, but
He's got direwolves.
He's got direwolves, yeah. And Manfred, just a load of stuff that's really difficult to kill. And Tubbs is playing a control list that in Slaves of Darkness, coverless, and he's just not going to get through it. And he needs to on this battle plan. So it's
So basically, Nikita could park some of his survivable units on his objectives. Tubbs is never, ever, ever going to get them. He's never. That's guaranteed 24 points, 3 lots of 8, pretty much, isn't it, from Nikita? Because Tubbs just doesn't have the output to get them at any point, and that's what happened. 20-0 to Tubbs. I think Nikita got the turn 3 priority to delete Tubbs, and at that point, he just was never going to win. So, a bit of a washout here, a bit of an unfavourable matchup where Tubbs has got all these toys and all these control things that he can do, but he's got no output, and he came up against a list that just requires pure output to get through. So 20-0 to Nikita there, and Nikita's actually my round 6 opponent, Stuart. So hopefully I'll have a bit more output than Tubbs. After that, though, we had your game, didn't we, Stuart?
Yeah, so we had a big ogre derby here. So I made Constantine with his 3 Frostlords and Stonehorn with 1 Meta Cruncher each, rest in peace, and Stonehorn Beast Rider and some Mournfangs, and me playing the Yetis with a couple big monsters. And I would like to say, Luke, I absolutely hate the way that I played this game. Just thinking about it the last few days, it's just like, this is so unlike me. But basically, he gave me the first turn, and going against my own policy of doing nothing on the first turn, and I actually did something on the first turn. I had a 9-inch charge potential to just I can't burn on turn 1 obviously, but take control of one of his objectives that was lightly guarded. So I went for it. Now one thing that's important to talk about in this game is the way the deployment went. So his 2 or 3 drops, I think 3 drops, with the 3 big monsters, and I'm like a million drops, 2 of which I can put off the board. So he had to deploy his whole army when I had 1 fire belly on the battlefield. Right? And what that enabled me to do is just I literally put my whole army on his weak flank. So he had 2 Frostlords and Stonehorn on 1 objective, and then Stonehorn and Beast Riders and 2 Mournfang, and then he had 2 Mournfang and 2 dogs, right? That was the setup. I just put my whole army on the flank that had 2 Mournfang and 2. Alright. Those 2 Frostlords and Stonehorn on the other side of the map have to go a long way to get me. And my plan was basically, I'm just going to swap sides with him. but because I've got more battle line, I should just be able to control more objectives than he can. That was the plan.
So you turned it into like a long ways to sort of match, really,
Yes,
didn't you?
that's kind of how it went. So on the first turn, I was going to go into that weak flank with the two Frost Sabers and the two Mournfang, with 2 units of 3 Yetis and the Frost Sword and Stonehorn. I had to roll rerollable 9-inch charges on all of them. I could do that because I've got a reroll Charges aura. 1 unit of the Yetis made it in, and the other 2 units didn't. And I killed the Frost Sabers, and I wasn't in combat with the Mournfang, but he did kind of leave me in not a terrible position, but he could kill the 3 Yetis there with either the Beast Rider or the Stonehorn that was in the middle objective, then get into my Stonehorn possibly on the next turn. Which is sort of what happened. So he went and then he got into the Yetis, killed the Yetis, and he was in combat with the Frost Sword and Stonehorn, but he couldn't hit it because I'd positioned it far enough that even if he killed the Yeti screen, that he was like kind of 5.3 inches away from my Stonehorn, so his weapons weren't in range. So, fortunately, he wasn't in range, but he ended up being within 3 inches of my Frost Sword and Stonehorn, and so my Frost Sword and Stonehorn on the bottom of his one had a chance to kill his Beast Riders. I swear to God, Luke. So I did like 27 damage to this Beast Rider, right? And he passed 18 of the 5-up saves or something like that. So he didn't die. He had he only took 9 wounds, and my Stonehorn was stuck in combat. It was something like that. He had a couple of wounds left. I think he had like 2 wounds left because he took it from the Yetis, I think, earlier in the phase. Anyway, so I'm in a really shit position because my Stonehorn's like locked in combat, and his like Frost Sword and Stonehorn is standing directly behind the Beast Riders, and if I don't get the turn here, my Frost Sword and Stonehorn is dead. And unlike his list where he has 3 of them, I have 1, and if that thing dies, I don't have any damage in the rest of my list at all. So that thing cannot die, or I lose the game.
Staring down the barrel of a gun there, aren't you?
Yeah, so I'm just like, what have I done with this game? But I didn't lose the priority, Luke. I did get the priority, and some weird shit happened. So first of all, I did bring it down, obviously, because there was this Stonehorn Beast Rider on mega low damage. And then I killed him with the Blizzard on turn 2, so I had to roll a 1 or 2, and then I rolled 2 mortal wounds, and then he didn't make any after saves. So killed the Stonehorn. I killed the Stonehorn Beast Rider with the Blizzard, which is just ridiculous. And then my Stonehorn.
Did that deny you getting the bonus point for killing it with a monster, or does it?
No,
still count
because it's an ability from a monster. So my Frost Sword and Stonehorn did it to his Stonehorn Beast Rider. So I mean, it's always a great feeling when you get your agenda done in the hero phase, because then you just have like a free turn to do whatever you want to do. Which in my case was I then got into the Frost Sword and Stonehorn behind it and killed it. And then kind of positioned my Yetis in a way that my Stonehorn would be screened, both by the Yetis and also by my Meat Shield, Frostlord, and Thundertusk, which I just decided that his role is just stand there and not die. So he actually does quite a lot of damage because your opponent just ignores him, but I mean, it's not anything like the Stonehorn. And yeah, I think the game was kind of over at that point. Like, there were some other things that happened, but that turn 2 priority was so big because, also I was talking about how he had those 2 Frostlords and Stonehorn on the opposite flank. And on the bottom of his turn 1, he'd sent them down as like, if I get the turn, I'm going to burn 2 of your home objectives. That was the plan. But because I got the turn, I just burnt my 2 home objectives and then ran my whole army away from them. So he just had nothing to do with those 2 Frostlords and Stonehorn really for the rest of the game, because I just burnt the objectives they were going to take. And because of, the massive amount of impassable terrain, it was just so hard for him to like move his models around the board, really. I have to say as well, like the way the map was set up, so there was like 2 towers, and in the middle of the 2 towers, there was area terrain. Now, I put my Hrothgord Mantrapper's trap on the area terrain, so he had no way to dodge it. Like, basically, if you were going to move through the middle corridor, like, you had to land, basically on the area terrain. So in an army like his, you really just can't take D6 mortal wounds. because everything's so low wound count, but high quality. Another advantage. But yeah, I mean, I hate the way I played that game because I basically just opted into a slightly higher than 50-50 and then won it. And because I won it, like,
Yeah,
the point score is like massively in my advantage because I won it, right? Because we both kind of opted into the 50-50 and then I got the 50-50 and like we just blew each other.
I
I just
think
blew
that's
them
this
up.
battle
Yeah.
plan, to be honest with you, and it's certainly how I feel my game went. I think if the priority went differently, it could have been equally as devastating the other way, etc. So, well done, Stuart. Even if you did play it like a bell end, good job.
Go first and do nothing, people. Don't do something. Always a mistake. That's just my list, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. Right, we'll move on to table 10, where we didn't have any of these Stuart McCowan sissies. We had Nick M versus Will, two absolute heroes of the tournament so far. Nick with his Stormcast and Will with his Bone Splitters. And I think Nick M here gave Will a bit of a masterclass as to what these Annihilators truly can do. So Nick's got three of these Annihilators, which can deep strike, do mortal wounds when they land, and they can deep strike from within 7, thanks to the Imperator, which is a new hero from Dominion. And Nick's turn 1 was him popping down one of his units of Annihilators and tying up the Arrow Boys, whilst the Gotrek killed some of the Boar Screens that had moved up. Nick got the double, was able to put another unit of 3 Annihilators into the Arrow Boys to tie them up even further and chip them down some more, whilst Gotrek kills some more screens. And then in Will's turn 2, the Rogue Idol comes in to try and clear off the Annihilators that are tying up his key shooting unit. They didn't do it. Those Annihilators are on a 2-up save. They're in Hunters, I believe, so they're not getting Rawed or anything like that. So they're going to be on a 1-up save because they're going all-out defense. And they just tanked the Annihilator. Only killed like 1 or 2 of them. Nick got the big turn 3 prio, which is what we're seeing swings of the game. So was able to burn Will's big main objectives. And the Rogue Idol whiffs again against the Annihilators, not able to free up his Arrow Boys. And then in Nick's turn 3, his final wave of Annihilator dropped down to tie up those Arrow Boys. So he identified the threat and had the exact tools that he needs to deal with them just by throwing wave after wave of Annihilators at them with their 2-up save. The Arrow Boys with their 0 rend isn't going to do very much against them. And I think that was a really, really good use of Annihilators and showcasing exactly what they can do. It's almost like an ideal situation for them.
I have to
Yeah.
say, Luke, do you think the name Annihilators is really appropriate? Like droppy tanky boys is really why they kind of like come in, do some mortal wounds, and then just kind of tank, right? They're not really annihilating, are they?
Well, they're doing something. I think. Well, I
They're
don't
very
think
good,
Cop
definitely.
Blockers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Cop Blockers has the same ring to it, but that's what they did here. They stopped the Arrow Boys having any fun, and then the last few turns was just clearing up for Nick. A few funny thing happens in the last turn. We had the big stabbers whiffing twice against the general, including the last hurrah where they get to throw their spear when they die. And then Nick's Incantor, after surviving all of that, decides to miscast and blow herself up. Uh, and the idol eventually goes down to some of the new battle line, the Vindictors. So big win for Nick there. I think he just had the tools to deal with the Will's Arrow Boys down. Will has said that the Arrow Boys are the main engine of his army, so he was able to identify that and shut them down. So well played from Nick. 17-3, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, nice job. We then had Joel Graham, who wasn't able to get his game in, unfortunately. And then after that, we had Damien versus Az Stuart.
I love AZ. What an absolute champion. So, I mean, this game, I was kind of wondering how he won this because it seems like an awful matchup on paper to me. IDK, played by Damien Musk. AZ, who's playing Beast Claw Raiders. I would say traditionally this is a terrible match. But AZ.
Why is that, do you think?
Well, I mean, they just have enough ways to kind of tank your damage, and you just kind of don't have that much of a way to deal with the Leviathan.
Hmm.
I would say, I mean, it's probably better with all the metal crunches, but it's still pretty tricky.
But
Um,
AZ was able to deal with it in quite a funny way, wasn't he?
yes, now he did perhaps do what I did as well, but He did. I think he didn't. I don't think he got the choice of turn, did he? I think maybe the
IDK did nothing turn 1.
yeah.
Yeah.
Who chose the turn though? Was it AZ? Might have been AZ.
Ooh, good question. Would have to look
Okay.
at the lists to find that out. I don't
Anyway,
know.
IDK went first. Ogres went second. Ogres went aggro on the bottom of 1 and got the double and burnt every objective.
Every single objective.
Every objective.
All 6.
So nothing to play for anymore. So aside from battle tactics, so AZ just ran away from the rest of the game and then got the 11-9 victory.
Yeah, so that whole game was just Damien's whole army chasing these Stonehorns that are running away for the whole game, trying to give me my victory points back, you know. And they got some of them back, but not enough. And AZ scraped out the 11-9 win there in hilarious fashion.
But I mean, to be fair, like what is IDK going to do about
Battle
the
line,
double turn? Yeah, with the burning thing, like kind of nothing you can do. They get on it, they kind of got it. Rough. They're just bad at objective game, aren't they? So.
That's not the game that they play. But we had another IDK matchup on table 13, which was IDK versus Codrin's Archaeon 6 Circle, and neither of these lists are particularly great at objectives. So this one went really. This was a bit of a detailed game that we got on the rundown, and it sounded really interesting, Stuart.
Yeah, it sounded I think much like my game, Constantine, where killing each other. Really. Objective game, like definitely going on. Neither of us are good at it at all. Yeah, so very interesting game. So Codrin's playing the Archaeon, right?
Yeah. Codrin on the Archaeon and Dilf, as I'm calling him, was on his IDK.
So Codrin's going first on the Archaeon, knowing that there's the potential for the double, but kind of goes through.
Well, he was able to see it. He was able to foresee it, wasn't he, with his Archaeon ability?
Oh yes. But goes for a bluff. You know, obviously that classic mechanic of down, but opponent doesn't know that you know. I guess you know they know that you know, but they don't know what you know. So he goes for a bluff and pushes everything forward. Archaeon gets into the Eidolon, decides not to go into the turtle, but then Eidolon pops the Cloud of Midnight, so Archaeon couldn't hit him.
Wow, he killed 3 Aether Wings instead.
A little bit sad, isn't it? But yeah, Cloud of Midnight still magnificent artifact.
Still strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then on Dilf's turn, I'm just calling him Dilf. He fails his charges with his ambushing eels, but then retreats and charges the Eidolon, and then some 3 eels into the Varangard and kills 2 of them. And he gets the double. Obviously, we knew that was going to happen. And kills some horsemen for some easy broken ranks, and the Eidolon retreats and charges to tag the Manticore Lord, who unfortunately lives on 1 wound, and also the Varangard live on 1. So a bit of a heartbreaker there. And then going to the next turn, Codrin knows that now he's getting the double. So, I mean, that's just huge, knowing that you're going to get the double now. So, I mean, the mental edge here is huge. So then Archaeon gets into the eels and Volty and takes Volty down to 2 wounds. Kills the eels. But unfortunately, the Chaos Knights couldn't cap objective off 6 eels somewhere else on the map. And then going into the double, he gets a battle tactic and also knows that he has priority into 5. I kind of haven't thought about it that way before, but yeah, like once you get the double, not only do you know you're getting the next turn, but also you're going to have like the information on the next battle round priority in that next turn. So you kind of get a lot out of the double, right?
The ability from Archaeon here is the running narrative of this game, and it's actually what's shaped the game. So I think in an edition where we've got a lot of stuff happening on certain turns, with turn 2 you can burn objectives, turn 3 an objective's going to get burnt from seismic shift. Maybe that Slaves of Darkness Archaeon has got some unique abilities to be able to, more information can be gleaned from that ability than in an AOS2. I think it matters more.
Yeah, I mean, if it sounds like I'm a little bit unfamiliar with that archetype, it's because I am, because nobody plays it. I have to say, like, it's never really been a thing, has it? Like, people have always played Zenith Archaeon or him in other allegiances, not his tailor-made
Yeah.
own allegiance, just because of the lack of summoning, I guess. But anyway, back to the game. So yeah, he knows he has priority into turn 5 now. Once at the top of turn 4, gets an easy conquer, but on turn 4, DLF is able to kill Archaeon with the turtle. So I was saying before, the Frostlord and Stonehorn bloody hates the turtle. Yeah, Archaeon also hates the turtle because not only does he have the potential to do 6 mortal wounds with each the bite attacks, but I mean even just neg 2 ran 4 damage
Fins,
on
man.
the fins. Yeah, the
Yeah.
fins, the 5 fins, I think. The 5. That's just gonna wreck a lot of monsters in the game, isn't it?
And they're literally like 2s and 2s re-rolling ones. They're super reliable in a lot of cases.
Yeah, I think in Fuath,
I think that
yeah,
turtle
it's 2s rolling
is
ones, 2s
phenomenal.
rolling ones. Yeah.
Yeah. And that left Codrin with only the Sorcerer Lord on turn 5. And he was trying to teleport his Sorcerer Lord, but he failed, didn't he, Stuart? And that gave DLF the easy grand strategy by taking out the Sorcerer Lord for prize sorcery, which allowed the IDK to claw it back to 16 points to 17 points to the STD. So the Slaves to Darkness get the win, but just by 1 point, Stuart. Absolute roller coaster of a game.
Yes, and another one of those ones I think where, like, I mean, both of those armies just have a terrible late game, right? It's quite interesting. Like, IDK
Yeah.
and Slaves to Darkness both just have a terrible late game. So it sounds like they both didn't have much on the board at the end of the game. Yeah, unfortunately, a few key rolls from the Slaves of Darkness that meant that couldn't quite get as much of a point lead as he had earlier in the game, but still ended up with the.
We went from a 1 point victory, a 10-10 with Codrin and DLF, and onto table 14, we're looking at Ironside versus Colonel Monty. Ironside won't mind me giving him a little bit of a jab here. He got smashed. He got 20-0 smashed by Colonel Monty's Soul Blight here. So the story of this one is that Jacob, Colonel Monty, with his Soul Blight, he has some of his Blood Knights in ambush, and he has his 3 monsters. He gets his Ferocious Advance with his Vordry, Manfred, and the Venga Boy. And then Peter, bless his heart, he's an ogre player. He pushes everything into the middle, gets the double, and kills some screens, Stuart. He kills some fell bats and he kills some direwolves. So he's
Ooh.
feeling very chuffed with himself. Until those direwolves come back on a 5-up and steal his objective behind him.
Rip.
Because they're battle line. And then Jacob gets the double turn back and the Vordry the Vordry kills the General Frosty. The Blood Knights ambush and take the objective off the Mournfang. And on the double, the rest of the monsters, including the Venga Boy, which is going to give minus rend, minus armor save, sorry, to the anything he's in combat with, turns Vordry into an absolute can opener, and he killed all the Stonehorns on his and the Thunder Tusk. So Peter only having his heroes, his Butcher, Hothgorn, and 2 Mournfang left. So that was a Peter maybe couldn't resist the old double turn smash where he might have been better served by playing a bit more conservatively at that point. But you live by the sword, you die by the sword, Stuart. You're an ogre player. Can you relate to this?
Well, actually, so I mean, there's a great show by Warhammer Weekly, which we don't need to advertise because they did a classic, Timmy, Johnny, Spike archetype. I agree with them that Ogre More tribes definitely firmly in Timmy archetype, and we all Timmy out a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, Peter unleashed his Timmy here. He could have maybe tried to be a bit more Spike, but he went Timmy, and it didn't pay off for him. So well done to Colonel Monty getting the 20 points there. Table 15, Stuart. What do we have?
We had Alan Joins playing Thunder Lizards, Seraphon versus Pask, who's playing Ogres, another Ogre player. Now, Pask always tells me that this matchup is good, and I always disagree with him. Always tell him, do not want to play against a Bastiladon with Ogres. Now, Alan does not have a Bastiladon in his Thunder Lizards, but A load of monsters that all reduce damage by 1. Yeah, we know. I popped in a few times with this game, and it did look like Pask was kind of doing pretty well in the early game, right? But eventually
Yeah,
wasn't enough.
Alan had some unfortunate rolls, but yeah, that Engine of the Gods is tanky as all hell, Stuart. It's reducing damage by 1. It's got this ridiculous artifact. Um, you know the artifact I'm on about?
Oh, the skink cloak, whatever it is.
-1 to hit, +4 move and fly. What the fuck is that about?
I
In
love
one
it as well.
artifact? That's obscene.
Like visually trying to imagine the fact, is it the fact that the little skink priest on top that doesn't even have a weapon profile in combat, right? Like, is him wearing the cloak giving Stegodon +4 move, fly, and
No, the
-1 to hit?
Stegodon. No, the Stegodon has like a tutu on his rear legs made out of feathers. You know, like a pink tutu, and it helps him
Okay,
fly.
okay,
Yeah,
yep, makes sense. Um, that model's also just got the priest keyword for just some bizarre reason. If it already wasn't priced at 265 points, I don't know. Very good. I think
yeah. So
overlooked.
basically,
I think overlooked in second as well, but definitely donks third.
yeah, I know Tavi, the other Seraphim player of note, is also keen on the Engine and the Gods. But in this matchup, basically, I don't think Pask was able to take down what he needed to take down, and Alan was able to get 13 points to 7 win there. We will move on, Stuart, to table 16, where we had Azura Korn versus Charles and his Marathi bow snake got track list, and this is a bit of an unfortunate matchup for Korn. Korn don't like shooting, do they?
No, and I've also just written in the show notes why am I playing Marathi and the bow snakes on table 6?
So, table 16, round 5. I'm on 2 and 2. What do I get? Shit, you know.
A little bit rough, isn't it? But yeah,
A
it's
little bit rough.
difficult. Hmm.
But I think I've played Azura in round 2, and I've got to know him a little bit better. He's an absolute wizard on the corn, and was able to get some tricks off with bringing Scar Bloodbath back and summoning in and getting points and getting battle tactics. He pulls battle tactics out of his ass, does Azura, but not able to stand up to the power of Marathi, Gotrek, and the bow snakes, because he's not going to really kill any of those things with what he's got, and he's gonna take a lot in return. Um, Table 17, Stuart, what went down?
We had Hippie Chef playing Soul Blight with a bunch of zombies and Neferata and some Blood Knights versus Jonathan Anderson, previous opponent of mine, playing Gotrek in Iron Rack with a bunch of defensive heals. I know Jonathan was dreading this matchup, but
Was.
yeah, which I don't know if it was entirely warranted. Luke and I were talking before, but I think what he was worried about was on the battle plan. He wasn't going to be able to really contest the zombies, but
On the objectives, and he was also worried about that he's put all these points into these unrendable eels, and he's come into zombies that have no rend and do mortals on 6s.
yes,
Type
which is
thing.
all true, but the zombies just don't win the grind. They'll actually just lose to 3 eels hitting them.
Yeah,
Right, that's the problem.
and I
Yeah.
think that's what went down, was that to Jonathan's surprise, maybe his eels were actually killing the zombies in droves, despite them being the defensive eels and not the outputty eels. And there wasn't too much in Hippie's army that could take down Gotrek. If you consider that Gotrek's going to be swinging first in most cases, and those zombies aren't going to be able to get all their attacks in, crowding round his tiny little base. Um, what was the end score in this one in the end? Was it a 20 and 0? What was it?
14-6. So yeah, quite a wide.
14-6. Yeah, which is weird how we're seeing a 14-6 being considered a wide margin in AOS3, which I agree with you. I believe it is. It goes you to show how the new scoring system has changed how we view scores, which is great. The next table, Stuart, we had Trevor. He's becoming a bit of a folk legend on this Discord with his crazy KO Macrodoth list versus Sean and his OBR, and Sean's showing that OBR are still an army, and I would agree to him. How do you feel about OBR in AOS 3?
I've spoken to him about it. I don't I don't think he's very entertained by the army, which is also
He's
my.
not.
I've only played OBR a couple of times and I just hated it. So boring. I mean they're very tanky. And on these sorts of battle plans where you just have to kind of stand there and then maybe take one of your opponent's objectives, like they're perfectly good to play. The new changes which allow them to use multiple shield balls and bludgeons is great, but I don't see the entertainment factor for me personally. But that's just me. Definitely a strong army. Yeah.
Yeah, they're an army that you do your thing, and then it's the question of can your opponent deal with it. It's not that you get to do anything fun. You're just simply asking your opponent a question, isn't it? It's not like I'm going to go over here and cap this objective and do some movement tricks and target priority this and that. It's here I am, come get me. And for some people that's fine, and for some people it's not, regardless of how strong it is. But Sean showing that it is still strong. Next we had Perludes versus Detroit Stewart.
Yeah, so Detro playing the Thunder Lizards Stegodon kind of archetype list, which we're seeing a lot around the world now. It's definitely a very strong list. Versus Perludes, who was playing kind of a dwarves focused city list. Yeah, and Detro got the win here. We don't know too much about this game, but I
What
mean,
are these notes?
sorry.
Not sure if Rule 34 or some post office PC game from the early 2000s.
Yeah, I mean, just
Thunder
the
Lizards versus Dwarfs.
visualization of a bunch of lizards versus with like crazy magical weapons versus like Tolkien-esque dwarves is a little bit weird. I have to say, like,
A little bit weird.
it's definitely a
Um,
bit weird.
if we can, I just want to very quickly talk about Detro's list because I feel like it's gone under the radar this tournament. It's gone middling so far, I think, for Detro. I don't know what his current standings are.
On four
He's
and
not at
one.
the bottom, and
On four and
he's on
one.
4-1.
Yeah,
Oh,
playing for 5-1. Yeah.
well, that shuts me up then. But that's an even better reason to talk about it than Stuart. Because I was about to say before I released it on the 4-1, I think this is secret hotness. I think the Thunder Lizard Monster Mash with the Stegodon battle line does a lot more work than people think. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And the key thing here is that, I mean, obviously we got the Basties. There's two of them. Not only a line breaker, but also like if you play against a Bellicor or something that turns one of them off, you can just say, well, I'll just double shoot the other one. So actually having two, although the second one when it's not double shooting is like nowhere near as good as the other one, like it's still worth
But
it
it's
just for
still an
redundancy. Yeah.
unrenderable battle woodlouse that you can shove up, and people will say bring it down, and you say nah.
Yeah.
And having two of them is good for its points. I don't think it needs double shoot to get its points back.
No, I agree. And the other key thing here is that the three Stegodon battle line are in Hunters of the Heartlands. And they have an ability on their War Scroll which allows them to get +1 save against an enemy unit of 5 or less models. So if you're against opposing monsters, you got that -1 damage from Coalesced, and you're also +1 save just from the War Scroll. And then because you're in Hunters, they can't stop you from also getting +1 save from All Out Defense. So you're often
Plus two save.
you're just +2 save, ignoring damage 1, not really having to do anything aside from spending command points. So mega tanky, and really difficult for a lot of armies like Gargants deal with, right?
Yeah, and the output, it's still a shooting army at the end of the day. It's still got those bows and those Bastillodons. It's like a really good mix. It's got objective play with them counting as 5. It's got combat threat because those Stegodons do some damage. They got their impact hits and they can do a little bit of work with their jaws attacks. And they're shooting you all the while, so that you're weak when you charge into them. I think this is a good list.
I have to say the Skink Chief as well, with the Prime War
Oh,
Beast command trait. This thing like can do some mega damage. Like he can get +3 attacks on himself with his command ability, and also the
astralism.
Astralism. That one. Yep.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So Detro proving that as weird as it looks, the Monster Mash is actually quite a strong list. Table 20, Stuart, we had Maestro with his net doc list versus Blue Omnicron's not so net Soul Blight. That's what happens when you get a Gotrek Marathi the bow snakes in round 5 on table 20, isn't it? Similar
Yeah.
to Azura. Yeah. Soul like not being able to stand up to the output of the bow snakes, and also they don't have the answer to Marathi or Gotrek here. So if you can't answer at least one, probably two of those issues, you're not going to win that game. Which is why we've seen it as an absolute gatekeeper, and why people think it's such a strong list, right?
Yeah. You definitely got Marathi, a lot of armies like Seraphon, like chippy armies have the answer, and then other armies might have like the big volley fire answer to Gotrek. But if you've got neither, it's hard to play the game.
Hmm.
Okay.
Table 21, Stuart. One went down.
We had Connor Carriers playing Gargants versus Raymond Lane, who's my hero of the tournament, playing Nurgle. It's had like the biggest spread of results. Like, if we go look at the ladder, I'll just show on the ladder quickly. Where he actually is.
Yeah.
Considering he's on 63 points with 2 wins. Like, incredible. Like, it's actually amazing that he's got that many points. Like, a lot of his losses have been very close. And his wins have often been complete blowouts. Like this one here where he got a 20-0.
It
But
wasn't
actually,
just any 20-0, Stuart.
it actually could have been a 30-0, right? Because the difference was actually
What
it's
was
even
it?
more than that,
45 to 6 or something.
Yeah, it was like 39 points difference or something. Absolutely insane. We don't know too much
And
about the
then
game,
what I love,
but yeah, I think he just
what
did
I
the damage,
love
right?
was he posted his picture of the scoreboard where it said like 45 to 5, and then he had the audacity, Stuart, to write, "Oh, actually, it's 46 because I forgot the bonus point for a monster," and I just found that hilarious. But yeah, absolute blowout. The damage is real, and Connor's list is the Stomper tribe. So those man crushers are not tanky, and they just melt, absolutely melt to the volume of attacks that the Puskar Blight Lords can put out.
Yeah, and
And
he's got no magic
the
defense
Stomper
as well,
tribe has
right?
got no magic defense, so he's not stopping Blades of Putrefaction, and the man crushers aren't getting their bonus damage against hordes because that's 4 models. Yeah, it went poorly for Connor, unfortunately. So that game may be going the way that we thought it was going to, but the next game, Stuart, maybe didn't go the way that we thought it was going to go. We had Tzeentch Archaeon, piloted by Cy Johnson, versus Varangard, piloted by Ben, Exalted Len. So Archaeon versus his cronies, and the Varangard showed Archaeon who the real boss was.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, right? I mean, you would say this is the absolute worst matchup for Knights of the Empty Throne, Tzeentch Archaeon, because those who don't know, if Tzeentch Archaeon puts, or if any Archaeon puts Varangard in sword when they have the hero keyword, the whole unit dies. And Tzeentch, obviously,
Yep.
you've got the ways to guarantee you're getting the 6s with Destiny Dice or Kairos. So being able to put the whole unit of 6 Varangard, which is like your key unit in that Knights of the Empty Throne, just in the sword, 1 hit, guaranteed if you've got the Destiny Dice. But it sounded like Ben Lyon just played an absolute blinder this.
I think he did. So what he did, he went for Archaeon took turn 1, failed the spell portal, so couldn't get anything, and got the Ferocious Advance, and then moved into the middle. So at that point, Ben's like, "What am I going to do?" So he put the Karens and the Chaos Hostile Lord and the Warshrine all on one corner, and was able to keep his battle line right on the back of the objective, with the Untamed Beast screen in front of them. Was able to get the Karen Guard into the Fangs of Circuit Screamers, which were deployed out in turn 1. Chewed through them quite happily with the Manticore and the Karen Guard. And then it was the big turn 2 priority. And he says to me in the message, if I lost that prio, the game would have been very different. But he didn't, and was able to burn 2 of the objectives and kill all his battle line right off the bat, leaving, just Archaeon and a few buff pieces left. And that's the story that we've been seeing in this battle plan time and time again, where if you get rid of your opponent's battle line, you can suddenly start holding objectives with otherwise non-threatening units, and it puts, having burnt, it puts your opponent on they have to do something. They can't play passively. They have to play aggressively and maybe overextend further. that dreaded thing of what you said, the auto 6 into the Vanguard did happen. So Len lost his sixth Vanguard. That's sixth Vanguard going down just in one go for free from the Archaeon. But they didn't stop Exalted Len getting the wind with all the battle tactics and stuff that he was able to do. And he was saying that it was turn 2 priority and pushing up was the only thing that allowed him to win that game. Otherwise, it would have been completely differently. So Ben was clever enough to spot the opportunity, took it, and it paid off. Common story in this battle plan, Stuart.
Yeah, it sounds like for a lot of the people who may be in a bad matchup, like approaches, go second, try and burn the whole board.
Yep.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't really know if that should be a thing, but it is, so well done.
Cool. What table 23, Stuart?
Yep, so we had Willem playing Thunder Lizard Seraphon versus
Lizards.
yeah. Matt something who's playing IDK, so I think matchup. Bastillodon obviously less flexibility here because of Forgotten Nightmares. Now Matt something has quite an interesting list. He's got flip ties in Fuathan. And that really made Seraphon play quite cagey here in the early game. Now he's got some Reavers in his list, and he was also able to do some key work here and take out the Sallies on the Seraphon side. Obviously, that's a huge threat.
That's so big, Stuart.
Yeah.
So big.
Yeah, and also killing them full to dead as well is like mega important, because if you leave one on a couple wounds, obviously opportunity to rally back the other one quite easily, because you roll for all of the handlers. And if you get any of the 6 on the handlers, then the Sally comes back at dead, because you can pick any of the
who comes back. Yeah.
Command models from the unit. So yes, you got to kill the Sallies, which he did with the Reavers. So amazing. And the Turtle and the Eidolon made a charge into the Basti, and Stegodon as well. But unfortunately, the Bastillodon lived on 1 wound, Luke, like they do.
This thing never dies, Stuart. This thing never dies. The battle would louse. Oh, I hate it.
It's a bit rough. And Seraphon got the priority into turn 3. And Croak popped off in this game, and he killed the Leviathan. Well, not by himself actually. He put the Leviathan quite on low wounds, and then Luke, the Fusel of Conflagration never does anything. Actually took the Leviathan down. Now, people say it does nothing, but Luke, do you remember that game we played the other day where I did 6 mortal wounds to your Drycha with that thing off of Stasia? That was pretty fun. Remember that?
Turn 1. Yeah. Whenever Tavi, my good friend Tavi, plays it, he literally, I've seen him do it about 7 times in a row, where he just rolls a 1 turn 1 and the Fusel just goes away, which is hilarious. Because it's the only Sin Guy artifact in the whole book. It's the only Sin Guy thing in Bing Guy thing in the Sin Guy book.
Look, okay, I have to say, like, it is a Bing Guy artifact amongst Sin Guy artifacts, but compared to some of the other stuff out there, man, like, we would love to have that artifact in Ogres, man. Like, it's actually really good.
D6 mortal wounds potential. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. But yeah, unfortunately, at that point, he didn't use Bring It Down, on the Leviathan. And that was kind of the mistake
wasn't able to capitalize.
Yeah, so he got the kill off the monster, but he wasn't able to get the battle tactic off it. And he had to burn his own objectives, or else IDK would take it. And I'm assuming they'd already burnt one on the turn 3 prio take. So I mean, not much kind of import happened for the rest of the game apart from that key turn 3 swing where he had to burn his own objectives, and he also wasn't able to get his battle tactic, and he just ended up too far behind to really come back in the rest of the game. Yep.
Was able to get the win though, Stuart, did Wilhelm. It was 13-7. So Croak blowing up those
that's not the blurb I got. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Croak getting obviously IDK going forward into Croak blowing them all up, including the Leviathan. Wasn't able to get his battle tactic, but the burn and the turn 3 prio stopping Matt something having his objective was able to get the point swing into Wilhelm's favour, 13-7 to Wilhelm. I believe is how that went.
Okay. Apologies. All right. And then on table 24, we had Coddle's Claw, piloted by Hayden Wright versus Beath on the Slanesh. And yes, Slanesh was able to eke out a win here. What a legend.
Faith, get in touch. Tell us how it went, because we don't actually know too much. But God, you're a hero, mate. Because that's not a matchup I would have had you winning. Although that being said, Stuart, he's got his big block of archers and he's got Glatos, right? I don't think with the zero rend Cottle's Claw army with all this Saurus that Glucos is going to do down, and the -1 to hit makes quite a big difference because they're quite crappy attacks. And those Bliss Barb archers aren't going to be affected by the Thunder Lizard -1 damage thing because they're all 1 damage attacks. So maybe it's not as bad as it looks. And Hayden's been trying to make Cottle's Claw work for a long time now, but it's definitely not the one compared to the other things in the book, is it?
A lot of dice for not a lot, unfortunately, with the Saurus guys.
Yeah. Saurus got nerfed even more in the FAQ, but we won't talk about it. Poor Hayden. But well done to Anthony. Well done to Feith. Table 25, Stuart. What went down?
We had Half's Rel versus Nico Lunch's KO. Now, what happened here is we had the classic Clown Car Alpha Strike from the KO. But as I've seen in a lot of games that we've watched, Luke, it didn't kill that much. It just killed like the Ballista and then a couple Wardens and some Archers. The hit back here like really just blew up the KO.
Yeah, that's what we're seeing. The KO coming down, doing a little bit, and then losing everything if they don't get the prio.
Yeah, and then Severeth just kind of yeeted around the board for the rest of the game, just taking objectives and chipping shit off. And eventually,
yeah, and obviously once
killed all the
the
battle
line go down.
Yeah.
KO not famed for their strong battle line, are they? And in this battle plan, strong battle line's going to win you the game, and KO just have a couple of Arcanauts and some Balloon Boys, and that's not the best battle line in the game, is it?
It's
especially
very
in terms of survivability. Yeah.
I don't think you made the wrong call here. Like, I think you just got to go for Alpha, or you just lose, right? Against Archers, shooting
Definitely.
off the Arcanauts. You can't sit in the transport and cap the objective with the battle lines, so very rough. Very, very rough.
Do we think, Stuart, that KO has gone from something that you'd consider A tier, running and taking out a lot of tournaments in AOS2? If you were to put a tier letter on them, where would you put them now in AOS3? I'm personally thinking C or D tier, which is a huge drop, isn't it?
No, I don't think it's that clear cut. I think they're probably low A tier.
So you don't think it's that bad?
No, like I think a lot of their bad matchups are probably worse now. But a lot of their good matchups, they've still got kind of some unique angles against certain armies. Like you're playing them against Foxes, for example, they're quite good. A lot of armies that hate being alphaed, like some Seraphon lists. Seraphon's still, it's actually kind of iffy. Saw that in a recent talk. Had some weird stuff going on, but
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like KO are very good at punishing, either poor deployment or punishing lists that don't have a lot of protection for their key pieces, punishing lists that are high drop when they should be low drop, stuff like that. Punishing lists that rely on one key synergy piece or something like that.
Yeah, they have that such unique playstyle where they're going to be a bit of a gatekeeper, but I just feel that in the world of safe stacking, they're not doing the output that they need to do. So interesting KO AOS3. We will move on though, Stuart. I've got to rattle on a little bit. I need to pay some attention to the other love of my life, which is obviously 40k. No, I'm joking. It's my girlfriend. But we've got table 26. We had MJ Pegasus with his Sylvaneth, brave enough to face against Gargants, and he put a wonderful game summary in the game summary channel. Let me just find it and I'll read it out for you. it wasn't in game summaries. I think it was in the general chat, but I do want to read it out because I remember it being very profound, very profound. I done fucked up. Juan played fantastic. Gargant smashed.
Nice.
Yeah, not the best matchup for MJ Pegasus there. I played actually a pickup game with him, and we practiced this round, and yeah, I was like holding back my punches and giving him priorities that I shouldn't have done, and it was still just an absolute slaughter. Sylvaneth don't have the tools to deal with Gargants, full stop.
No, unless they can just make them not move, which they can't do now.
Can't do anymore. Cool. We'll just quickly blast through the rest of these. Stuart, what did we have after MJ Pegasus? We had another Sylvaneth.
Yeah, Michael Zarek versus Kaius, who's playing Iron Jaws with Kragnos and Mooncrusher, and yep, Sylvaneth would get the. And then on the Tigerloth had a bye play, and then on CJ Delorto got the win with Trogs versus an interesting Settlers game. He's a 6.
She did it. Yeah, she did it. She's got her game win. She's got her win in round 5, and she's come really close throughout the tournament. She's been getting like 7, 8, 9 points out of every single one of her losses, and then she was able to get the 15-5 win over the City Sigmar here. So I'm really pleased for her, which is great.
Oh, and
We
then
next had Archaeon couldn't play, B Timmy couldn't play, and then the last game, Stuart.
yeah, so Grinny played, I believe it was MJ Pegasus. Well,
It was.
yeah.
It was
I'm not
able to
quite.
step in for a bye for
I'm not
us.
quite sure how the game went, but like a very close game, obviously. Narrowly get the win over kind of a defensive.
Absolutely. So we saw that MJ Pegasus struggled maybe against the Gargants with their objective taking abilities and they're having weak battle line. But here, Matt Greeny's leaning into the combat snakes, which are quite fragile, and he's leaned in to try and making them defensive with the heart of the prayer of heart fury thing, the heart of Cain. That's what it is, and the -1 to wound bubble from the allied in Phoenix. But with all the tricks and all the teleporting and all of the trees and stuff that Sylvaneth were able to do because we weren't using the obviously mistype and misbroken FAQ for Sylvaneth, we weren't using that. So he was able to still use his trees and teleport properly and was able to burn objectives and eke out the closest of wins there. And that brings us to the end of round 5, Stuart. We're into the final furlong of the tournament.
Yeah, so I mean, we obviously spoilers. The top table that we've already come out, but this is what it looks like. So this is really so it was a 5-0 with Philip playing 4-1-0. So Tobias had a draw top table there. We did fortunately get the clean 6-0 victory, which is great because I kind of didn't want like someone who's 5-1 for example. Yeah. We had a few drops in the tournament. Obviously, this is a 6-week thing. Life happens. We had a few drops in this. Good to see the clean 6-0 win at the end, but obviously perfectly. Yeah, and then
We've still got some big things left, Stuart.
we
We've still got some big things left.
Some big brawls, I would say, in the 4-1 bracket. Everyone's looking to show, that they want that. What's the percentage there? 5 out of 6. 80% or something. We all want that win rate. So we've got Orkman playing.
5-1 is very, very good result.
It's very good.
You see a lot of 4-1s, obviously, but we've got a unique opportunity there. We've got a 6-game tournament. They don't come around as often as the 5-game tournaments. A 5-1 result is, almost it's still 5 wins, which is huge in a 5-game event, and it's still 5 wins, and it's still huge in this sitting. So a couple of players looking for their 5-1s, me and you included, Stuart. We're looking for our 5-1s and the title of best destruction.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I've never really identified. That says about.
So the best way to play destruction is to not be a destruction Timmy.
Yeah, I mean.
No. Oh, that's a null point. But I've got Nikita, and the question is, and I'm playing tonight actually. Can I get through all of that stuff and win on the objectives? Because it's a pretty objective-based battle plan. And you've got IDK tricks to deal with, don't you, Stuart?
And pepperoni. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. Curry's great. How this is gonna. I'm bad. I think. Like historically speaking, my first match with the Yetis, especially. So I mean, he doesn't have the defensive eels at least to just kind of take my Yetis out. Tricky. The Leviathan drives me
The
insane.
the current 4-1 bracket that we have is actually really weird. I've just looked at it a bit further. We've got Orcman with Corn looking to take down Antu, which would be huge. We've got Olivier and his Foxes, no surprise there, but he's up against Monster Mash Seraphon list. And then we've got Little Tank versus Stormcast in round 6 for a
Yes.
5-1 fight. That's
So
mental.
yeah. So Corn
Absolutely
versus
mental.
Doc, Gargants versus Soulblight, IDK versus Triggermore Tribes, Lumineth, Foxes versus Seraphon. Spread of
But
armies there.
I
A
would
lot of them kind of melee.
Yeah. Out of the probably so they're looking at that 4-1 bracket, which is probably the first 6 tables excluding Phillips. Uh, you've got Antu and his Doc and Olivier and his Lumineth. Outside of that, you'd probably call the rest of the lists. You wouldn't necessarily put them straight in that S tier tournament chaser style list. You'd probably put them in a bit more of an outsider. And we've been seeing that across tournaments across the world, where some of these outsider lists are finding ways to play AOS 3 differently and uniquely. So good luck to all of those players in particular, but good luck to everyone else as well. Because we do have a few other matchups. Is there any other matchups that you think will be worth people looking at?
Yeah, Tavi versus Rob. So Tavi with the Seraphon and Rob with.
That is and then we've got Will, the hero of the tournament, with his bone splitters. He's not got Seraphon. He's got Archaeon instead. So good luck to Will. Will there. He's had a hell of a run with his matchups, and he's done well, all things considered. Um, I know we said, Stuart, that we were going to talk about terrain and stuff, but I'm not going to talk about terrain right now. We'll knock that chat on the head, and I will start wrapping up. Is there anything that you want to say about the tournament so far? Because we're closing to an end now.
Um, I would say so. For next week, we're gonna do probably more of a wrap up kind of show. So we're gonna look at some of the archetypes that went well in the tournament. So maybe for next week, don't expect us to go much in depth on each of the games, but definitely still send us through the game summaries. There's a game summaries chat now. So if you put them in
Put them on
there,
the channel.
yeah, that's the
Mm.
easiest way for us to get them. If you put them in like the declare results or the general thing, sometimes they can kind of get a bit lost for us and it's hard to find. So you can put them in game summaries chat.
That would be great. Good luck to everyone, and thank you for joining in for the round 5 roundup for the Release the Beast. And we've got 1 round left. Let us know how it gets on, and we're looking forward to an exciting end to an exciting tournament. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for the final rundown.